Just I better take that off. Well, we are already starting off imperfectly. Good heavens. Oh, yes, it's another Wednesday. And yes, what is it? It's the Imperfect Action live stream. As you can see, we're already starting off imperfectly. Good heavens. And who am I? I am Rob Fenstermaker, former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder. Your kingdom builder. What do I want to do? I want to help you get out of the rut and start living your dream life, because that's what it's going to take. You to bring clarity on what it is you want to do, get out of that rut and start taking actions. Hey, a couple things. This Friday is the next the virtual Friday whiskey hour. It's a great way to end your week. We always have some meaningful conversation. And some people said, "Why don't drink whiskey?" You know what? There's no requirement to drink whiskey. Just show up and enjoy the conversation. That's just, like I said, it's just a great way to bring your week to an end. But enough about that. It's time for the Imperfect Action live stream. It's time to introduce my guest. My guest today. My goodness, you've done some amazing things. You led some kayak adventures in Alaska. I got to hear more about that. She leads Wild Woman Marketing. What a name! What a name that is. But my guest today, Leslie Capps. On this hump day, what fantastic things you got going on in your world today, Leslie?
Ooh, what fantastic things. Always. Well, I'm being here with you, Rob, right? That's going to be the highlight of the day, I think. So I appreciate
There
you
you go.
having
Yeah.
me. Yeah. Super cool. I'm trying to think of what actually I solved problems this morning. And who doesn't feel amazing after that, right? Something that's kind of nagging on you. And
Yeah.
it's like, I need a better strategy or
Right.
plan for that, and came up with a resolution. So, like, I'm golden for the rest of the week.
Very cool. Very cool. There you go. And go for the rest of the week. Now you live in Wyoming. I have never been to that part of the country. And Wyoming is what? There's 500,000 people that live in Wyoming. So you got all kinds of land. What's it like living in Wyoming? I've always been curious about that. What's it like living in Wyoming?
um, what is it like? So I joke a lot that some of a joke, some true, that COVID was not a big deal for us because we stand 6 feet apart anyway, right? Cars are, yeah, we don't have to jam up on the highways. We can stand far apart in the stores. So yeah, we're like, what's a big deal? Like nobody touches here anyway. Um, but yeah, I think it's vastness of beauty, right? But also then weather. Weather
Mhm.
can be a challenge for people. It
Yeah.
can be super cold. It can be windy.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's this time of year is really beautiful. We have those crisp mornings and warm afternoons. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
and then there can be some frustration when you have to order things that you feel like you should be able to find in town, but you can't, or you have to drive an hour away to get supplies for. I did my own house remodel a couple years ago, and I just like weekly made a trip an hour away to get stuff that I needed. And that's just part of the deal, right?
Okay. It's part of the deal. Yeah. Guess you get used to. Have you had snow yet? Have you had snow yet?
No, we haven't had snow yet. We did have frost last night. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's around the
Yeah. I
corner
mean,
anyway.
me growing up in the Midwest, it's around the corner. I grew up at the majority of my life in the Midwest. I now didn't live down in South Florida, but this time of the year, to me, was always the perfect time of the year. You're just, fall officially starts this weekend. We have the autumnal equinox that comes this weekend. That's the, I guess, official start of fall. But you get that Christmas in the air. The leaves are turning colors. It's still nice weather out, but I always love fall in the Midwest. It doesn't get any better than that.
I agree. Fall is just a beautiful time of year. And it's like that winding down, right? And I'm a gardener. So like the zucchini went crazy this year. The whole neighborhood, every time they walk by, I'm like, need a zucchini? Need a zucchini? Yeah, till I think they were choosing a different route home. Um, so it's kind of that bittersweet, like I'm super happy it'll be done, but you're kind of like, oh, that was nice to have all that produce, but you're also like, I'm
Yeah.
ready to move on.
Yeah, you're ready. The one thing that always drove me nuts about this time of year in the Midwest is you're just kind of waiting for fall. And this is when the bees would get really bad. and you're just like you just wanted the first frost to come to just put the bees to be done with them. And that was the one thing that I just wanted the first frost to get be done with the bees. So, and it wasn't like the
Yeah.
honey bees; it was the bees that were just the nuisance bees, the ones that you weren't careful, you get that sting the crap out of you.
The bad bees. The hoodlum bees.
The bad bees. That's it. The bad bees. Yes, the bad bees, the bad bees. Well, speaking of bees, let's kind of get into it here. The B of
Sure.
branding, branding v marketing, branding. You always hear about brand. And when we think about brand, you think about some of the iconic brands that are out there, Coca-Cola, Apple Computer, um, you name it, Nike shoes. They all
Right.
have that iconic brand. They've been very consistent, but if you're in business, you need to have your own brand, create your own brand. So the branding versus marketing. When someone comes to you, as because you're a marketing, you have a marketing business, and they're coming to you to help them with their marketing. But if they're lacking a brand, what's that conversation you have with
Right. Well, I think it's super confusing in the marketplace because it tends to, in my opinion, these words get interchanged, as well as we don't have a good idea. And to me, they're combined, right? And especially as entrepreneurs, we are our brand. Actually, any business, any you talked about the big ones, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they all started with one person, one idea, and they still to this day, that person's moved on, died, whatever's happened, those companies still have the same values.
yeah.
And that's what we're talking about, in my
Mhm.
opinion, as branding. Like, one, it matters who you are, but two, it matters who the customer is that you're trying to serve. That has to be incorporated in the brand, right? Because we can't just say, I'm out here
Right.
doing this and I've paid no attention to what my audience wants. Um, the other thing is branding. Like, I think you can start in business without branding. Your brand is going to develop. Um, yeah. But I know that's
Mhm.
not necessarily a popular view with people who are just doing branding. Because I had a conversation with a
No.
woman that kind of took me to task and said, no, you got to figure out your identity. I'm like, I don't really feel like that, right? You are your identity. You just have to own it more than figure it out and be very clear about it, um,
You
and
you
clear
got to
about
own
your
it. You got to
message.
own it. But I where I kind of get confused with some people is one week there's something, and the next week there's nothing, and then or something completely different, and then the third week there's something completely different, and you're all over the map. So I'm like, that creates confusion, and
Yep.
when you have confusion, people are not attracted to that. They're just like, I don't know who you're going to be this week, so how do I do business with you?
Absolutely. You hit it dead on. And that's really, I use storytelling as a framework for marketing, from your introduction to your content to your sales conversations. And that's why it's such a powerful thing, because when we get clear on our messaging and our story and how it relates to our audience, you're exactly right. It takes care of that confusion of this and that and this and that. And how do we bring it all together? Because theoretically, it should all come under one umbrella. And if it doesn't, then you got a problem. Then either you need to make a decision, what an idea, right? Choose one thing and do that, or tweak this thing so it fits
Right.
under the same umbrella.
Yeah, and that the power of story is I mean, stories inspire. You think about the great stories, we're inspired by them. Just, not necessarily from a business perspective, but it's the great stories that we see, the great stories we read, the movies we go to. And, it's part of that journey. And you think of some of the great marketing campaigns, they've told amazing stories. The one that always comes to mind, only showed that commercial one time at the Super Bowl, was when they launched the Macintosh computer. I'm sure you remember that. And that told a story. I mean, it told a quick, 60-second story, but that resonated so deeply with people.
Right. Right. A- And we're missing out on the power of that, right? There the story, your story, no one
Yeah.
else has. No one else will ever have. But we get all weedy in our heads and don't have that clarity of what is the important part. Not so much for me, because a lot of times we get hung up in our own stories and we need to work through stuff. So we hang on to like suffering, and suffering should be optional. But we hang on to that part of it, and that's not what people want to hear. So getting clear on the parts of our story that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're all created unique. And I mean, there's not going to be other Leslie Capps. There's not going to be another Rob Fenstermaker. So embrace that uniqueness that is within us, and embrace it in a way that lets the world know who you are and what it is you want to accomplish. And it's true, you don't necessarily have to even have a business. It just kind of translates to everything we do in life. We all have a story. And how do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to remember you?
Right.
And I think that's the important of building that narrative of who we are.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Stepping into who we are and being that person all the time, right? Instead of, again, that confusion. When you're in this place, you're a different person. In this place, you're a different person. And that's confusing too. Not only for other people, but also for our own brains. Like at some point, we just get exhausted with all that confusion of who we are, where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to say live life holistically. And you're right. Just be the same person regardless of the situation. Don't be this one person when you're at work, this other person when you're at home with your family, and this third person when you're out with friends, or this fourth. Be that same person, because it gets too confusing. You've got to remember, wait, who am I supposed to be now? Don't compartmentalize your life, because eventually you're going to get exposed with that. And like I said, like we've said, that confusion, and lack of clarity on the message, on what it is, who you are, and what it is you want to accomplish, it's going to get lost. It's definitely going to get lost.
Yeah. I always tell people I was
So
gifted with a simple brain.
Yeah. So as clients come to you, and well, first off, when you really want them to, you kind of touched it a little bit about branding. Um, what is there, a couple of things that you're really clear on them when it comes to their branding, as far as what it is you want them to accomplish with that?
Sure. Yeah, I think being really clear on who they serve, which, we get that, again, that's confusing. How do you figure that out? And then people say, oh, like that'll get too narrow. And man, I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, I help everybody. I was like, okay, like I could argue that. I don't got enough time, but I can't refer you to everybody. There's the problem, right? So yeah, really helping people. No, we can't help everybody. We just physically cannot help everybody.
No.
And then let's narrow that down. So who we help and how we help them. And I don't mean how, because entrepreneurs get hung up in the how, the steps, right? The process. Nobody cares. And I mean how you help them. What benefits would they get from working for you? What are the results going to be? Because that's what we're buying, is the dream island. We want to go to the dream island. We don't care what the bridge looks like that you get us there on.
Yeah. And the entrepreneur, sometimes you got to wing it. And you shared with me that you agreed to write a book without necessarily having it together. And now you're kind of up against it to write this book. But
right.
You know what? To me, those deadlines create a sense of urgency. And that sense of urgency kind of gets you into that mode that I have to get this done. I have to get this done now. And as someone, I'm a former Army officer. You learn that urgency is, you've got to get it done at this point in time. It's got to get done, because it's a mission critical. It's got to get done. For you, you've made that promise. This book's going to be done on whatever date it is you put out there. You just got to get it done. You got to figure out a way to get it done.
Right. And you made a super great point. Mission critical. I had a bunch of people say to me, oh, well, I guess you got to think about your time and your resources or whatever. I was like, nope. This opportunity is one that I don't, if I pass it by, I don't know that's ever going to come around again. One. And two,
Yeah.
it's going to get me somewhere else, right?
Right.
Somewhere that
Right.
I think I want to go. We all know we plan the journey and it takes
Mhm.
its own path. But um, if it wasn't somewhere where I would have wanted to go, I'd be like, nope, I'll pass. But it was. So
Yeah.
then it does make it mission critical. Then I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? I got to rearrange. I got to make a new plan here. Because yeah,
Yeah.
me, I need a plan.
Yeah.
I work best with a plan, understanding 90% of the time it does not go as planned. But when you got a plan, at least you have that adaptability then to
Mhm.
say, okay, that didn't work. I built in enough time, I can come up with something
Right.
else.
And that plan you creates those guardrails as well.
Yep.
You know, because yeah, it keeps you focused on hands we get there. Focused on whatever that main thing is. So you have so you have a point to that you're focused on. You know, I see too many people that they create that thing and they get focused on that. Then they get over focused on that thing, and maybe that's step 632 on the process. But right now you're only on step 33. You got to focus on what step 33 is to get there. And
Great.
like I say, just keep your main thing as your main thing. When you know your main thing is always your main thing, and that's where you
Right.
focused on. And but that plan you create, that's your guardrails. So deviating too far to the left, you hit the guardrail. Like, oh wait a minute, I got to get back in center here. Maybe you go too far to the right. Up hitting the guardrail again. I got to get back in center here. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing kind of wrong with moving around in there, but just know that space you're in and stay in that space.
Right. Right. And it's um I think it's really imperative to think. Our society is so built on doing, right? And if you're in any programs that go, oh, you didn't get results because you didn't take action. Well, BS. I'm calling total BS on that. Um, and so what I propose is so
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
when you do this in networking is to think. Like that's one of the greatest things for me when, and especially when technology fritzes out on me. That's like my clue. I need to go into the garage, walk around the garage for a
Mhm.
hundred times and think. Because I need to move, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and then exactly what
yeah.
you're talking about, plan the actions. Okay, that's way down the road. I don't need to worry about that now. This is the next 4 actions. This is what I got to do.
Mhm. Yeah. And I see too many people out there that are trying to sell a program. Follow my foolproof program and you'll make $10,000, whatever. And you just, I mean, I see that and my BS meter goes into full red alert. Um, and yes, can they provide a plan? Yeah, they can help provide a plan, but say maybe it's worked for them. Maybe it has worked for them. But again, we're all unique, and maybe what worked for them is not necessarily going to 100% work for me. And you're right. I see people say, "Well, you didn't follow my plan. You didn't follow my plan to a T." Well, to me, it's kind of buyer beware. If you're going to buy into that stuff, beware. Make certain that this is the right plan for you, as far as what it is you want to accomplish, and that it's getting you to that destination you want to get to. We all want to be successful in what we do, and I I have no problem with success. I mean, I want to be successful. We all want to. You want to be successful. Um, but if all you're focused on is success, then you're kind of missing a big key part there in that who are you serving and how are you serving them?
Right.
Because I absolutely believe you serve people in a way that empowers them. You know what? They reward you with little green pieces of paper with dead presidents' pictures on
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm. Right.
it.
Mhm.
And that's what it's about. I think the focus needs to be more on serving. How are you going to serve somebody and not look at them as a potential dollar sign? How can you potentially serve them? And I think that's where the great entrepreneurs reside is, how can they serve others in a powerful way? Just my take.
No, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And as well, the great ones, right, step into their whatever their gifts are. Like I always kind of hate to use that word, but whatever their super strengths
Hmm.
are, and really lean into that part of it and don't get scattered, right? So they have that focus, sort of like the race car driver. If you look at the
Yeah.
wall, that's where
Mhm.
exactly where you're headed to. So you got to keep
Yeah.
your eyes on where you're going. So in the ranching world,
Right.
we always said keep your mind in the middle. So if you're on a horse and you don't keep your mind in the middle, then they're likely to buck your butt off. So you wanted to always be very centered there and looking forward. Again, same thing with a horse. You got to look where you want that horse to go.
Yeah. Hey, you said it could go to the wall. I saw an interview about a race car driver. I can't remember who it was. And he talked about that when he loses control of the car and spins out, he has to look down the road. He has to look down the lane, and that's his best chance of steering out of it. Because if he looks at the wall, he's gonna hit the wall. Even if he's heading towards the wall, he's trying to look to whatever is right or left, look down in order to steer out of it, in order to avoid the
Right.
wall, to give himself a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Another quick
And
tip. Here's a
where your
Wyoming.
attention is, that's where you're headed to.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Another
Yeah.
quick tip
I'm
in
sorry. What
Wyoming,
were you
because we
saying?
get,
You were saying?
yeah, another quick tip in Wyoming, because we get lots of bad roads, right? The interstate closes clear across the state for days, which I think is weird to the rest of the world. And we're just like, eh. Um, but yeah, when you start to go off the road or you see a wreck ahead or the road is icy, like you pick a spot out in the prairie and that's where you
Hmm.
go. Yeah, very similar thing.
Yeah.
Get out of the
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah. And it kind of, I mean, I've lived in the Midwest majority of my life, so I'm very familiar with driving on snow and ice. And when you start to spin, you got to steer the other way. You just have to, and it has to become routine. And I've seen so many drivers, they just, especially people that are driving the first time, they don't get it. And after you do it enough, you start to figure it out, and you just got to steer the opposite way. And you know what? Chances are you're going to get out of it. Um, so when we get into marketing, what are some key things that you really encourage your clients to do when it comes to marketing what it is they want to do? Either they're providing a service or a good. What are some key points that you really want them to focus on as they're marketing whatever it is they're trying to do?
Right. Um, let's see. There's so many, right? One would be, I think that idea of suffering is optional. Make your story what the other person needs to hear, not so much about you. And don't leave people in a weird, uh, funky emotional place. I know multiple people who will tell stories of,
Yeah.
bless their hearts, of being homeless or, you know, health issues, bad health issues. And they kind of tell this story and then they tell what they're doing. Well, 90% of the time they aren't connected. And because I always ask, yep, I get up in everybody's business and say, what's the connection here? Oh, there isn't one. Okay, don't tell it. Don't tell it. Don't. And then the other thing is, if it is connected, they don't build the bridge. And if you don't build a bridge, we're going to make those connections probably 90% of the time wrong, or else we're too lazy to walk across that bridge. We don't care that, your story somehow relates. We can't figure it out easily. So really being conscious of those couple aspects,
Yeah.
as well as like, we're simple people. If you give me, oh, I could do 400 things, I'm lost. I don't care again. We have limited attention spans. We have limited bandwidth to suss out, other than me, right? I'll ask somebody 100 questions to try and figure out what they do and how, yada, yada. But most of us, no, not so much. We're busy. We just want to know, how can you help me?
Yeah.
So cutting to that, even if it's awkward, even if you said it awkwardly,
Yeah.
if you got there quickly and people knew exactly what you did, you would be way better off than trying these complicated ways that'll work.
Yeah. And the reality is, people don't really care about what you do. They care about themselves. They have something
Absolutely.
that some issue they're dealing with. How are you going to resolve this for me? And you got to be able to communicate that to them. And I see too many people, they just want to talk about themselves and talk about themselves and talk about themselves and talk about themselves. You lose me. After
Right.
15 seconds of that, I'm like, all right, I guess you love some of you because you're not really speaking into ways you can help me out here. I mean, you've got to embrace this mindset that what it is you have to offer is can take them whatever their pain point, whatever it is that they're dealing with. Understand, ask the questions, ask those open-ended questions of how you can serve them in ways that so you can understand them, and then you kind of launch into what you can do and incorporate what they told you into whatever it is that you have to offer them. That to me
Right.
is effective marketing, and that to me is closing a sale. And it took me a little while to really figure out the difference between marketing and sales. And marketing, and you're getting your message, but sales is something a little bit different. You really have to incorporate that message into a way that lets them understand that you hear them.
Right. Right. So
And I think one of the
I
most
like to
powerful
talk
gifts we
about,
can give someone is to listen. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I like to talk about using your stories, because I talk about the whole process, right? The introduction, the content, the sales conversations, and you can use stories in all parts of that. But stories, using them very
Hmm?
goal and intention oriented. And the goal should always be to create the next open
Yeah.
door. Unless, frankly, you can't help them, unless you've already
Yeah.
explored and they've said what they're looking for and you can't help them. But again, if you're clear, then they might be able to refer you to someone. But if you're
Yeah.
not clear, they're not
Yeah.
going to either use your services or refer you.
Exactly. And you said at the outset you have people have come to you say, I want to serve everyone. Well, okay, well that's first off, that's not a good business because if you're trying to please everyone, you know what, you please no one. So be very clear on who it is you want to serve, and and because it gives you that level of clarity into how you can craft that story to speak into their lives, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And we all have different skill sets. And it's embracing those strengths. I see too many people, they want to get into whatever their weaknesses are, and then they just struggle and they figure out, well, why can't I do this? Well, you're not working in your strengths. You got to know what your strengths are. And whatever you're gifted to do, step into that fully.
Yep. You're preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir. So now I started earlier saying you left a corporate position to go and do kayak tours up in Alaska. I got to hear more about this. I have to hear about this.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit I am a sucker. I am a sucker for these Alaska wild shows. I can watch them all day. Where they're out living out in the bush somewhere in Alaska, and they got the rifle and they're going out hunting a moose or whatever they're doing because they're total subsistence. I'm sure it wasn't to that, or maybe it was to that level. I don't know. But I have to hear about this, the kayak
Right.
adventures in Alaska.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I had the job, right, that I thought was of my dreams, running a multicultural center at a university. Um, but I'm not a good candidate for 9 to 5, just hands down. I would always, and I thought a university, right, would be the place that would encourage new ideas and new thinking. Because I'm the person that says, ooh, we could do this better. We could do this differently. We could do this. We could like rate the
Yeah.
idea person. Nope. Always done it this way. Nope. Always done it this way. So total frustration for me for the 9 to 5. So yeah, that's where I was at. if it hadn't been for that, it would have been my dream job. I loved the students. I loved working
Yeah.
in multicultural issues. I believe in equity, equality, all those great things, right? So I was really in my element. But I had friends who had moved to Alaska and they were doing sea kayak tours on the Yukon River. And the Yukon River is a huge river, runs clear through Alaska. And they were basically right in the middle. Only way in and out was by boat or plane. And they said, why don't you come up and guide for us? I was like, okay. Like, yeah, I'm sick of the, nope, we can't do anything different. So yeah, I went up there for a couple summers, and it is very much, I think the show's probably, I don't know if they dramatize it as much as it is, right? It is very subsistence. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're bound to that community. I tell people this story, like there was only one rule when I got there. They said, you have to take a shower once a week, because the homes didn't have indoor plumbing because of the conditions. So there's a house or a bathhouse, laundry, and then showers. And I'm like, oh, sure. Really? Is that a rule? Trust me, after a week, you get totally comfortable with your own funk. You're like, I don't stink, I don't smell. And everybody else is like, yep, remember the rule. You got to take one once a week. And I think that's how our messaging gets, right? We get super comfortable with the funkiness in our messaging, with other people like, oh, Lord, have mercy, I want to stab my eye with a fork. And we just keep spewing the same thing. So yeah, all sorts of cool, weird adventures you would never get anywhere else than other the middle of nowhere, Alaska. But the people were very wonderful. When we were on the river, because there was no, we had walkie-talkies, I think, but there would be big stretches where we didn't have any way to, wasn't close enough to communicate. But the planes that flew along the river, they would watch out for you and report down the line that you were coming. And so yeah, a lot of fun and interesting experiences there. I had a gold miner propose to me and give me a little gold nugget to come work with him on his gold mine.
Yes, a shower a week. Well, I think the longest I've ever gone without a shower was about 3 weeks. I was back when I was in the army, but you still wash up you wash your face and wash your pits and that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But actually getting in a shower, it's been about 3 weeks, 3 weeks without taking a shower. And yeah, I knew I was getting a little funky, but there was no way to take a shower until we got back into wherever we need to be so I could take a shower. So
Right. Right.
So what did you learn from that experience? It's kind of taking you to where you're at now.
Well, stories were always a huge part of that, right? When I would come home from the summer, people here in Laramie, they'd always say, tell us stories, tell us what the people you met and what you did and things like that. So yeah, stories have really always been a huge part of my life. I don't think I really realized. I was in a project it was a project of 262 female entrepreneurs, and collaborate on a book. So it's 262 stories of women entrepreneurs. Well, it went on to be international bestseller, going to Emmys, going to the Oscars. Oops, probably shouldn't have dropped that, because that's on the QT, but that is definitely coming. But I had to get clear when I wrote on that book. I was doing marketing and I started talking about storytelling. And one of the parts of that book was, what are you passionate about? Sounds super nerdy, like I get it, but I'm passionate about storytelling. And how do we utilize our stories to really connect with people? If we're talking about sales, all sales are based on emotions. So why are we not connecting with people on an emotional level for sales? And then we back it up with logic. So stories just have so much power to bring people together, to create causes, to boost our businesses, simplify marketing. So many beautiful ways that you can use stories that, so my super nerdiness of stories was finally unleashed. And I was like, oh, I've been doing this stuff all along. I just, like everyone else, have been doing it wrong. How do we, make it work for us? Because our stories are so unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's embracing that story. It's embracing that message of who you are and what it is you want to do. That I think is most powerful. So are you done with your book yet? Or are you still is still in the process? Still a work process?
Yeah, so that was another book, and yeah, then from that book I got this opportunity to
Okay.
write my own book, exactly, that I am in the throes of right now.
What's the ETA when this will be done?
Um well, I actually have some people going to read it lined up, right? And I have to go back and edit. So here in about a week, I'm
Okay.
going to be done with the book and then
Okay.
send it to reviewers and
Okay.
yeah, because I
Very good.
kind of have a hard deadline of getting it to publishers and that kind of thing.
So you just jumped into the deep end. I love that. You just, I see too many people, they get in the pool and they want to kind of dip their toe in to see, oh, can I do it? I'm just like, just jump in. Just jump in. That's the only way. I don't care if the water's cold. If you're saying just jump in, that's the only way. I'm kind of, I have to say, just rip the Band-Aid off. Don't just do it real gently. Just rip it off. Because
Yep.
that's you learn a lot about that. You learn a lot about yourself. And just jump in and start swimming.
Or like get a life raft, right? I think we think there only has to be one option. Um, but build in the fact that somebody's standing on the side of the deep end with a life preserver, or that you can go back to the shallow end. But I think you're absolutely
Mhm.
right. If we don't jump in the deep end, we don't know what our capabilities are, and we continue to play small. I work with
Exactly.
a lot of people who
Exactly.
are wanting, they've got a certain amount of success and they're wanting to build on that now. And a lot of that we can build into wording, right? Make the wording more powerful. The wording speaks to a slightly different
Mhm.
cause, a slightly different audience. And so many say, oh, like I've thought about it, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to step into that. Yeah, you are. Kind of like you say, let me shove you off into the deep end. You're ready.
Let's go for it. That's kind of how my dad taught me how to swim. Just push me in the water. All right, I guess I've figured it out here. And he was there, but he pushed me in the water, and you figure things out. And we say we need everything to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection in this world. It just doesn't exist. And if you're waiting for the perfect time to do something, you're going to be waiting a lifetime, and then wonder, well, what happened? Why didn't this happen? Because you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. You didn't test yourself. You didn't see what it is you're capable of doing. And when we do those things, like jumping into the deep water, you're absolutely right. You realize what we're capable of. You're like, well, wait a minute. I guess this wasn't so hard after all, because we tell ourselves these lies. Like to say we have a little 6-inch space between our ears where we get too much talking going on and not enough action. Sometimes you just got to shut out those voices and just do it. Just do it. There you go. There's another famous marketing campaign. Just do it.
Right? Yeah. Right. Or and I talk about too the voices in your head as well, but who is going to be the loudest voice? And if it's not you, then choose a voice that
Yeah.
is empowering, that is pushing you on to be bolder and stronger and smarter, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But don't let those other voices live in there rent free.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome, and it's a thing. I mean, I think we all have it at some level. You're never going to get rid of it. But the one thing I have found to help me cure it is I got to find better people to be around. I got to find people that'll take me to that next level. And yeah, maybe I'll feel like a little bit of an imposter around them, but they force me to be better. And like it's been said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you know what? Maybe it's time to go find a new room.
Right? Yeah. I'm not
And
sure.
there's
Yeah.
something
I've
about
never
that.
felt
There's
that
something
way, but
about
yeah.
that because But there's something about that because I mean, we can have those relationships or those things in our life um, that maybe are holding us back. And sometimes you need truth tellers to come along and show you those blind spots. That's what I do. I like to. I'm a truth teller. I'll show people blind spot. And I've had to step away from some relationships just because
Right.
they'd run their course with me. They were kind of, I wasn't going to get any more out of it. Now,
Right.
I mean, you could still be friendly, but I've got to move on from this. I have to move on and go find that next thing. And pursuing that next thing, I think that's powerful as well. What's that next thing in your life? Because if we get too comfortable with where we're at, to me, that's not a good place to be. Because when you're getting uncomfortable, that's when true growth happens. That's when you really start to understand what it is you can accomplish. That's when you get in the deep end, is we get uncomfortable.
Exactly. And when you get clear on your messaging, more and more doors will open, right? And you made a great point about people in your
Yeah.
environment. I had a gal say to me the other day, she said, "We seem like a woman of substance." You can imagine, like I laughed out loud. I was like, "Really?" I said, "I don't know about that, but I will tell you, like I got a whole shit ton of women of substance behind me, right? So having that power of community and a tribe, like I might not know the answer, I got peeps that are going to know the answer. And then the other thing is
Yeah.
you're so dead on and cutting out people that are not moving us forward. I had a friend tell me a while back, she said, and it was kind of related to something else outside of my work, but she said, "I'd have thought of asking you to do this, but you're not capable of it." I was like, "What?" in my head, right? Um, and I cut the conversation short and got off. And I thought about that, and I was like, it wasn't the first comment of something like that, but it was the last. I was like, I'm done. There's no reason to, supposedly we're friends. There was no reason for that. Um, yeah. So maybe you don't have to be that drastic, but I do think paying attention to the people that are not supporting us and dragging us down is something that everybody needs to
Yeah.
look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen those people too that you're trying to make yourself better, and they see that, and out of selfish ambition, they try and pull you back. And those are the ones you definitely need to run from, screaming and kicking, whatever you need to do, get away from that because they don't have your best interest at heart. I mean, I've had people that known people that, yeah, okay, I can see they're going in a different direction than I am. And say, hey, I love you. Go for it, man. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna hold you back. Go for it. And yeah. So
Yeah.
since you as we're kind of what what are those things you would tell anybody? There's just three key takeaways when it comes to marketing themselves. What are do you have those three things that you always say, this is what you really need to focus on, this and this, in order to take your message to another level as you're creating that story?
We've kind of talked about I'm really getting clear on your audience, getting clear on what you do for them,
Yeah.
not so much the how. Um,
Hmm.
Learning the parts of your story that are not only unique, but the other person needs to hear that it's attracting other people. Um, and I think there's so much noise for online business owners getting clear on what are your channels, right? Do you want to, like, if you hate Facebook, don't be on Facebook.
Yeah.
Um, Pick
Yeah.
where the channel one, maybe two, you can always add on, but start small. Uh, the other thing I tell people,
Yeah.
networking. Networking is an awesome place to test out your introduction, your stories. All you got to do is pay attention to the body language,
Oh yeah.
and it's very apparent,
Yeah.
right? But so many people just get focused, they don't pay attention to
Hmm.
anything else. Well, start going in there and testing out a whole bunch of stuff. It's a great place to do that.
Yeah. 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 I do my share of network. I enjoy networking because I mean, that's how you meet people. And the virtual network, I call it the virtual networking circuit. Back in the day when you and I got out of college, what'd you do? You put on your monkey suit, grabbed your portfolio with a bunch of resumes, and headed to whatever social event it was, and grease some palms and pass out some resumes. Well, it's just kind of the same thing, just a little bit different. You don't have to get up and leave your house, but you can do it. I mean, I still like going to face-to-face networking events. I don't think those will ever go out of style. I think
No.
people uh, hunger for that. I mean, if you're sitting in front of a computer all day, let's be honest, it can get monotonous. Um, but yeah, you're right. Just sharing with who you are to other people, and see how it lands. And that's a key thing.
Right. And then the one other thing I
It's so key.
would add that I talk about a lot is switching from selling, right? You are not 99% of the time, you are not going to sell on the first meeting. So why are we all focused on pitch slapping and selling? Like, you got to buy this, you got just create the open door. That's all you're looking for. So it takes off the pressure
Yeah.
of this selling weirdness we got going on, and just think about creating an open door. Yeah, so I call it Boy
Yeah.
Scout
The pitch
trauma.
slapping, I always love it. Yeah, pitch slam. But you know what? I mean, I will, for lack of pitch people, just come on. They got to know what I'm doing. And I want, to me, that's a way of relaying what it is you do. And if they want to buy, great. If they don't, all right. But I agree. Sometimes you do the follow up is needed, and I've always heard the fortune is in the follow up. I've had many
Yeah.
people tell me that the fortune is in the follow up.
Right. Right. Well, and you got to get them to want to even follow up with you, right? So I think, yeah, there's a difference, right, between pitching
Yeah,
and pitch slapping. And I'm sure the people that I'm talking about that just say, well, this is what I want to do. Do you want to have a free trial? Do you want to
I
sign
know.
up now?
You
Like,
know.
somebody did it to me the other day, right? We got on a
Yeah.
one-to-one call, and she's like,
Yeah.
so are you going to put my business on your website? I was like, whoa. Like, I need a coffee date. You're not
Yeah.
putting a ring on it this quick, right?
It-
Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's right. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's you connected with somebody, and within 10 seconds, you're getting something in your DM.
Yeah.
I
You're
hear
like,
you.
wait,
I
wait,
hear
we
you.
got to flirt a
So
little
if
bit.
people want
Yeah.
to, if people flirt a little bit, yeah, that's right. You don't get married on the first date. You don't get married on the first date. So if people want to reach out to you, is this the best way for them to get in contact with you? This email,
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. They're more than welcome to.
and then if they swing by your website, what are they going to see?
Oh, they're going to see all sorts of cool stuff, right? So I have a free course, Captivate in 30 Seconds, How to Hone Your Introduction. That actually gives you a framework. They can plug your own stuff in that will help clarify your introductions. There's also, seems like there's like 5 secrets. I'll probably get the name of it wrong, right? To strategic storytelling. Again, kind of talking about that mindset. How do we switch from what we've been doing to something different and really utilize our unique story? And there might be one other free thing on there.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So as we're kind of coming upon here, I mean, is there any final advice you would like to give anybody out there that's kind of, trying to figure out what their next step in branding themselves or marketing themselves is?
The next step. Certainly clarity and honestly getting outside perspective. It's really hard to be in our own heads and see the things that stand out about
Yeah.
us. I worked with a woman a while back who was a photographer, and she said, so I'm a brand photographer, but I feel like I'm more. So she told me what she did, and I was like, okay, I get this sense there's something more here too, but like I can't piece it together. So tell me your story. And she said, when I was
Yeah.
pregnant with my second son, my first son was 3. She said, my mom was dying of cancer. I knew I had to create memories. So I picked up a camera, and that started my business. Okay, that's pretty freaking amazing. There's not much more that you need to do with that. So I think a lot of times having that outside perspective, not happen that happens to be one of my gifts, right? Digging deep and saying to somebody, okay, like
Yeah.
I can't connect the dots, but I see all the dots out here. So keep talking until we can bring it together. And then there's the thing that you need to hone in on. There's the one tagline or the one thing that you need to tell people that will bring them into your world.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, Leslie, really appreciated this conversation. I appreciate you stopping by. Hey, just want to remind this coming Friday is the virtual Friday whiskey hour. Go ahead and stop on by. We'll always have a great conversation. I got some general ideas of what I want to talk about this coming week. And you always kind of cater the conversation around something that's of interest to me. And so far, it's worked. We can have some meaningful conversation, meaningful dialogue. That's the important thing. That to me is important is having that dialogue. We live in such a polarized world anymore that you say something that can piss somebody off. But there's people on there that come on this, and I know there's many things we probably don't agree about, but we can find some common ground and have those conversations. And that to me is what's important about something like the event that I host. So I like to get out of my. I don't want to be in a silo. I want to hear of other people's point of view on life. That to me is what's important. I think that's something we need to embrace, and that's what the Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour is all about: is embracing different ideas and embracing different thoughts, and how we can make this world a better place. I think that's what's important. So but Leslie,
Absolutely.
like I said, I really appreciated you stopping by. Yeah, I appreciated this conversation. I hope everybody got some value out of this, and I know I certainly learned a little bit some new things today, and that's the important thing. Every day is an opportunity to learn something new. Find those things that you can learn new every day, because you know what? If we hang on to yesterday and identify with that, yesterday's over. We can't change it. If we worry about tomorrow, and you know what, tomorrow is not here, and you know what, there's not a guarantee we're going to get tomorrow. But we have today. Today, that's where the opportunity is. There's opportunities to learn something new in each and every day. That's my parting shot. Again, I appreciate everybody stopping by. Again, this is the Imperfect Action live stream. We'll be live again next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I look forward to talking to you again. Peace out, everyone.